Hi, enjoy listening. The badge used to mean something to Nathan Hale. Back in those days, he believed in things like truth, integrity, and justice. It wasn't blind optimism. He knew the system was flawed, but he had always clung to the idea that one honest man could make a difference. And in the beginning, maybe he did. Nathan had been one of the best investigators in the West Side District Precinct. Sharp instincts, calm under pressure, and a knack for connecting dots others missed. He wasn't flashy, didn't chase the glory, just got the job done. That's what made him dangerous, especially to the wrong kind of people. The case started out like so many others. Whispers of fraud in the Department of Housing. A suspicious death labelled a suicide. Some missing city funds. Nothing concrete. But the deeper Nathan dug, the worse it got. Millions siphoned from redevelopment projects. Bribes paid to city officials. And worse, 2 murders staged to look accidental. He connected them all, slowly, patiently. And then came the phone call. It was a Tuesday. Nathan was sitting in his office after filing the final report. He felt strangely light, proud even. He had finally finished what might be the biggest case of his career. That's when the line buzzed. A man's voice. Calm, low, almost friendly. "You're a family man, right, Detective Hale?" Nathan froze. See, some people care about money, others about legacy. But you care about Claire and Eli. We respect that. So here's what's gonna happen. You're going to walk away. Let this go, or we'll take away what you love most. And unlike you, we don't bluff. Nathan's throat went dry. He felt the blood drain from his face. He hung up, heart hammering. He should have called for backup. Should have warned Claire. Should have, but he didn't. That evening he stayed late at the station. Stubborn, proud. He wanted to be the one to take it all down. By the time he left, it was too late. The call came through dispatch, cold and clipped. Shots fired. Victims matching your wife and son's descriptions. Playground at Brook Hill Park. No survivors. The drive there was a blur. He didn't remember the screaming tires, the red lights he ran, or the violent curve he misjudged just a mile from the scene. His car flipped twice, landed in a ditch. He woke up in a hospital 2 days later, wrapped in gauze, broken in more ways than one. The funeral was quiet. No officers in dress uniform. No flag-draped caskets. Just him in a wheelchair, unable to speak. His mother-in-law, Janine, walked up after the service. Her eyes were red from crying, but her voice was stone. "Tell me, Nathan, who needed your honesty that bad?" Then she spat at his feet and walked away. At night, Nathan checked himself out of the hospital against medical advice. He found his apartment locked and empty, the evidence board on the wall already torn down. No one from the department called Not a single soul showed up, and that was the start of the fall. He drifted, 1 week at a time, then 1 bottle at a time. He slept in his car when he had it, on benches when he didn't, at shelters when he could stand the sermons and rules, but mostly he just wandered. Denver was full of men like him, broken, bitter, forgotten. He didn't want to live anymore. But death, like justice, had no interest in convenience. One February morning, he collapsed in the alley behind St. Mark's Church. Hypothermia, malnutrition, and a half-empty bottle of cheap whiskey beside him. The priest who found him, Father Thomas Rourke, should have called an ambulance. Instead, he carried Nathan inside, laid him beside the furnace in the supply room. For the next 3 days, Nathan drifted in and out of fever dreams. Sometimes he saw Claire. Sometimes he heard Eli's laugh echoing from somewhere just out of reach. Mostly, he just stared at the wood beams of the ceiling and waited to die. But death still didn't come. And when Nathan finally stood, frail and shaking, Father Thomas handed him a broom. "Start with the snow," the old priest said. "Then the sidewalk. We'll talk after that." Nathan didn't argue. He was too tired to argue. And that was the beginning. The snow kept falling that week. Thick, dry flakes that whispered across the church steps like ghosts. Nathan shoveled in silence, his breath forming clouds in the frigid morning air. The bruises on his ribs ached with every twist, and his knuckles bled from the cold, but he welcomed the pain. It was something real. Father Thomas didn't ask questions at first. He offered no judgment, no pity. Just work. The broom, the axe, the snow shovel, the wood pile. Nathan split logs out back behind the rectory. His hands blistered and raw. He scrubbed floors in the fellowship hall. He hauled crates of canned food for the church pantry. In the quiet hours, when the sun dipped low and the cold crept back in, he sat in the chapel by himself, head bowed, though he never prayed. He didn't believe anymore. Not in justice, not in God. He just sat there because there was nowhere else to go. Father Thomas would sometimes join him, not to preach, just to sit. "You don't have to speak," he told him one night. But Nathan said nothing. It took nearly a month before Nathan asked for a room. Father Thomas raised an eyebrow. "You've been sleeping on the chapel floor for weeks. I figured you already had one." He offered Nathan a small cot in a utility room above the kitchen. It smelled like cedar and old paint. There was a Bible on the nightstand. Nathan left it untouched. He didn't talk about Claire. He didn't talk about Eli. But some nights, when sleep wouldn't come, he found himself whispering their names under his breath, like a ritual he couldn't abandon. Claire had loved sunflowers. Eli used to chase squirrels around the yard and call them fur rockets. Stupid things, small things, but they kept him anchored. By Easter, Nathan had stopped drinking. By June, he'd grown out a beard and lost the shaking in his hands. By October, he'd enrolled in seminary classes on a scholarship Father Thomas arranged. He didn't tell anyone his real name. Not yet. Father Thomas passed the following winter, peacefully, in his sleep, at the age of 73. The funeral was modest, as he'd wanted. No elaborate eulogies, no gilded coffin. Just a wooden box, a half-filled chapel, and a man whose entire life had been poured into quiet kindness. After the service, the bishop pulled Nathan aside. "He spoke of you often, Mr. Hale. Said you reminded him of the Roman centurion. Fierce loyalty, unyielding conscience." Nathan didn't reply. He couldn't. "He thought you had a calling," the bishop added. Nathan looked down at the floor, then slowly nodded. "I don't know about God, but I know about justice, and I know I don't want anyone else to end up like me." Over the next 2 years, Nathan Hale became Father Nathan, a name few in the congregation connected to the disgraced investigator from years past. He didn't hide it, but he didn't advertise it either. His sermons were short, clear, no poetic fluff, just truth wrapped in compassion. He ran night patrols with volunteers to feed the homeless. He helped addicts find housing, even when it meant cleaning up vomit or paying out of pocket for rehab deposits. He spent hours with grieving parents and broken. It was a weekday morning when Lillian Rhodes, a dignified older woman with a tight voice and trembling hands, called the parish office. Her stepson, Jason Trent, had died unexpectedly in a car accident. His fiancée, Emily, was devastated. The family was wealthy, influential, and mostly unchurched, but they wanted a respectable service. Father Nathan didn't recognize the name at first, but by the time the details were finalized, open casket, late 20s, due to marry in 2 weeks, he had a sinking feeling that this one wouldn't be routine. He told himself he was being paranoid. He didn't know yet that Jason Trent was not lying in the casket, or that the demons he buried were about to rise again. The Trents didn't just walk into the church. They arrived, all polished chrome and controlled grief. The hearse was late model black with silver trim. The luxury SUV behind it had tinted windows and vanity plates. Father Nathan stood at the front doors of St. Mary's, watching as people stepped out onto the icy pavement in expensive overcoats and designer heels. One woman caught his attention immediately, not because she was mourning, but because she clearly wasn't. She was tall, in her early 40s, impeccably dressed in a tailored navy dress and a pearl grey scarf. Her posture was rigid, her expression calm, too calm. A man in a charcoal suit hovered close behind her, resting a possessive hand on her lower back. Nathan knew the body language. Not grief. Control. That was Vanessa Trent, Jason's stepmother. The man beside her introduced himself brusquely as Chad Barron, a close family friend. Nathan offered his condolences. Vanessa offered a weak smile and checked her watch. "Father, can we keep this brief?" she asked. "We have arrangements." Nathan blinked. "This is a funeral, Mrs. Trent. It takes what it takes." She pressed her lips into a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Of course, just please be efficient." Efficient. He bit back a retort. Not his place. Not anymore. Inside the sanctuary, mourners filtered in quietly. Most were young. College-aged friends, co-workers, maybe even old teammates. A few middle-aged couples. Everyone wore black. Everyone murmured. Everyone watched. Nathan noticed them. Sideways glances. Hushed whispers. Awkward hugs. There was tension in the air. Electric and wrong. At the front, beside the casket, sat a girl. Slender, pale, hands twisted tightly in her lap. Her mascara had run down both cheeks, and her eyes were glassy but focused. She didn't cry like the others. She just sat there, as if her grief had burned too hot, too fast. And now there was nothing left. That was Emily Rhodes, Jason's fiancée. She had the look of someone who hadn't slept in days. Nathan approached slowly. "Miss Rhodes?" She turned, startled. Her voice came out cracked. "Yes? I'm Father Nathan. I'll be leading the service today." She nodded. "Thank you for doing this. Jason, he didn't go to church much, but he believed in good people. He believed in you." Nathan felt a flicker of something in his chest. Guilt, maybe. Or shame. "I'll do right by him," he said. The sanctuary filled up. Vanessa kept checking her watch. Chad wandered over to speak with the funeral director, who seemed uncomfortable with his presence. Nathan moved to the rear of the church to give Emily a moment, but stopped short when he overheard two young men speaking in hushed voices just outside the doors. He was scared, man. He said he was going to blow the whole thing wide open. But they got to him first. "You really think it was an accident?" "Hell no. Not after what he said about the prenup. He told me his stepmom was pressuring him to put off the wedding. She loses everything if he gets married." Damn, that's cold. Nathan closed his eyes. The voice in his head, the one he tried to bury, whispered, "Listen, pay attention. This isn't right." But he shoved it down. He was a priest now. He had buried that part of himself with the badge. When the service began, Nathan stood before the casket and looked out at the faces. He saw pain, anger, and something else. Fear. He began the opening words of the liturgy. It was automatic. Scripture, comfort, hope. But his mind wasn't in the verses. He felt it before he even touched the casket. Something off. Not a hunch. Not emotion. Something physical. He moved toward it. Paused. His hand brushed the edge of the satin-lined interior, and he leaned slightly forward to get a better look. That's when he saw it. At first it looked like a shadow under the jawline. But then the light shifted, and he recognized the edge of a silicone mask, just slightly detached at the neck. Nathan's breath caught in his throat. He had seen this before. Years ago, an undercover witness used one to avoid cartel retaliation. Hollywood-grade prosthetics. Expensive, rare, highly illegal to use outside of federal operations. The man in the casket wasn't Jason Trent. His pulse spiked. He stepped back from the casket slowly, heart hammering. He turns to the congregation, trying to find Emily. She sat rigid in the front pew, staring at him with a strange intensity, almost hopeful. Vanessa's voice snapped through the silence. "Is there a problem, Father?" Nathan hesitated. His throat was dry. His mind raced. He could walk away, say nothing, finish the service, let the dead be buried. Or he reached forward. Slowly, deliberately, he took the edge of the mask between two fingers and lifted. Gasps echoed across the church. The face peeled away cleanly, revealing a gaunt, unfamiliar man in his 30s, unkempt, stubbled, with a long scar across his cheek. Not Jason Trent. Pandemonium followed. Screams. A woman fainted. Emily stood up like someone emerging from a long coma, hands trembling. Vanessa turned white. Chad dropped her arm. And that's when the church doors flew open. The sunlight sliced across the pews like a sword, and in it stood Jason Trent, alive. Gasps turned into chaos. Jason Trent stood framed by the light, his silhouette flickering like a ghost come to collect his truth. His hair was longer, his face thinner, but unmistakably alive. His eyes locked with Nathan's first, and then with Emily's. She took one shaky step forward, then collapsed into the pew behind her, sobbing openly. The congregation surged to their feet. Some backed away in confusion. Others craned their necks to see better. Vanessa Trent didn't move. She just stared at Jason. Her mouth slightly open, her complexion drained of all colour. Chad Barron took one step forward, placing himself in front of her like a shield. Jason walked into the sanctuary. Every step echoed. The silence was suffocating. He stopped 10 feet from the casket and stared down at the exposed face of the imposter, this stranger in his place. "That's not me," he said quietly, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm not dead." And then Very calmly, he turned toward Vanessa. You tried to bury me anyway. The funeral director muttered an apology and fled. Several guests followed him out, whispering frantically into their phones. Chad looked ready to throw a punch, but Vanessa raised a hand to stop him. She composed herself, smoothed her scarf, and took a single step forward. This is ridiculous, she said evenly. Jason, whatever stunt you think this is, you need to stop. Now. No more lies, Jason said. I know everything. About the foundation, the shell companies, the accidental overdose of Dad's accountant, the prenup clause that cuts you out if I marry Emily. And I know about Brandon. He motioned toward the corpse. Your fixer. Vanessa didn't deny it. She turned to the congregation. Everyone, please, this is a private family matter. We'll reschedule the service. My stepson has clearly had some kind of breakdown. He's confused. I'm not confused, Jason snapped. I was drugged. They staged my death. I woke up in a storage unit outside Richmond. Chad here made sure the paperwork vanished. You were going to bury this guy in my name and take control of the trust. Vanessa looked at Father Nathan now, her composure cracking. You have no idea what you've just done. Nathan took a step forward, his voice low but firm. I've buried hundreds of the dead, Mrs. Trent. I've never let someone bury a lie. The police arrived 10 minutes later. By then, the sanctuary was mostly empty. Just Jason, Emily, Nathan, and a few stunned onlookers remained. Chad tried to leave quietly through the rear exit, but was intercepted. Vanessa stood motionless, arms folded, surrounded by murmuring officers. The county coroner confirmed the obvious. The man in the casket wasn't Jason. His ID was falsified. His fingerprints returned no match in the local database. Nathan watched from a distance, arms crossed over his robes. He wasn't surprised when Detective Marla Griggs approached him. She wore plainclothes, jeans, blazer, sharp eyes. You used to be Nathaniel Ross, right? Metro PD? She asked. I was. Figures. She nodded at the casket. You spot the mask? I did. Lucky. Experience, he said quietly. She looked at him a long moment. You miss it? He didn't answer right away. Then, some parts never leave you. Griggs nodded, satisfied. We'll need a statement. And the girl, Emily, she's the one who filed the missing person report, right? Yes. She never believed he was dead. Neither do I, she said. And I think you just saved that man's life. The church emptied slowly. Nathan sat alone in one of the rear pews as the late afternoon light spilled through the stained glass windows. The room smelled faintly of incense and lilies. He closed his eyes and let himself breathe again. A few minutes later, he heard footsteps behind him. Emily slid into the pew beside him, holding a paper cup of coffee with both hands. I don't know how you saw it, she whispered, but thank you. Nathan looked at her, saw the exhaustion. When Nathan stepped beside him, neither spoke for a moment. Then Jason said, I don't know how to live in this world anymore. Everything I thought I knew, every person I trusted, it's gone. Nathan nodded slowly. Good. That means you're ready to rebuild it the right way. Jason looked at him. And if they come for me again? Then they'll have to get through me first. The church was quieter than usual the next morning. No visitors, no choir rehearsals. Just the low hum of the ceiling fan spinning above Father Nathan's office. The chaos from the day before had subsided, but its residue still lingered in the air, like smoke after a fire. Jason sat across from Nathan, freshly showered, wearing borrowed clothes from a parish donation box. Emily sat in the adjoining room, speaking with a victim services counsellor Detective Griggs had called in. She hadn't left Jason's side all night. Nathan folded his hands on the desk between them. We'll go at your pace, but if you're ready, I need you to tell me everything from the beginning. Jason nodded, his face shadowed by something deeper than fatigue. I never meant to walk away from the foundation, Jason began. But after my father died, everything got messy. Vanessa insisted we shift funds into this offshore charity she'd partnered with. I didn't like it. I told her I wanted to audit the books. A week later, I got food poisoning, or that's what the ER told me. He paused. His knuckles whitened as he gripped the chair's arms. But I didn't feel sick. I felt paralyzed, like my brain was being smothered. The last thing I remember is Emily dropping me off at home. I passed out, woke up weeks later, I think, in some storage unit. No windows, no phone, just a cot and a bucket. Nathan stayed still. What did they want? Silence, Jason said bitterly. And control of the trust. Vanessa couldn't touch most of the family wealth unless I was declared legally dead. So they fabricated a body. Got some guy who matched my height, had the face reconstructed post-mortem, plastic surgery maybe, and forged all the paperwork. And you escaped? Jason nodded. The guy guarding me, Brandon, he got careless. Forgot to chain one of my wrists properly. I dislocated a shoulder to slip out of it. Walked barefoot through 2 miles of broken field fencing before I found a gas station. And you called the police? They didn't believe me. Not until I gave them the coordinates to the storage unit and walked them through the aliases Vanessa used. That's when they brought in Griggs. She looked into it, found your church listed as the funeral venue, and told me if I wanted to stop it, I'd better come in person. Nathan leaned back, exhaling slowly. That was brave. Jason gave a broken laugh. That was desperate. Later that afternoon, Detective Griggs returned to the rectory with a warrant in hand. Chad Barron had been arrested on obstruction and conspiracy charges. Vanessa, however, had retained a high-powered lawyer and posted bail before sundown. She's slippery, Griggs told Nathan as they sat over coffee in the church kitchen. We're still trying to prove how involved she was in the planning. So far, most of the paper trail leads to Brandon and Chad. But I know she's the spider at the center of the web. She'll strike again, Nathan said quietly. People like her never stop until they're exposed publicly. Greeks nodded. Which is why we want Jason to go on record. Formally. Full statement. Timeline. Everything. That he's fragile. Nathan looked toward the hallway where Jason had retreated. He's not fragile. He's traumatized. There's a difference. Griggs gave a small, respectful nod. You'd make a hell of a detective again, you know. Nathan smiled faintly. That part of me is dead. That evening, as dusk fell over the sanctuary, Jason returned alone to the chapel and sat. Nathan nodded. Faith isn't a crutch. It's armor. Jason looked up at him. Why did you help me? You could have just kept quiet. Let the funeral proceed. It would have been easier. Because I've buried enough of the innocent, Nathan said. And I won't bury the truth. The next day, Jason gave his formal statement to police. His testimony opened the door for a grand jury investigation. More arrests followed. An accountant, a private pathologist, and eventually Brandon's brother, who had supplied falsified records. But Vanessa remained out of custody, maneuvering behind the scenes, her wealth shielding her from full accountability. For now. Emily moved in with Jason temporarily, and they both remained under police protection. And in the heart of St. Matthew's Church, Nathan Ross found his priesthood tested in ways no seminary could have prepared him for. Justice, he realized, was not always swift, but it began with a single voice, refusing to be silenced. Vanessa Langford knew how to play the long game. The headlines were unkind. Socialite sister accused in faked death plot. Langford family scandal rocks local charity scene. Body swap scheme linked to heir's mysterious reappearance. She'd seen worse. Public opinion was fickle, and it could be bought. But what Vanessa hadn't anticipated was the quiet resistance. Donors pulling their support from the Langford Foundation. Sponsors freezing accounts. And invitations drying up like autumn leaves. Her kingdom wasn't burning, but it was smouldering. She wasn't going down for this. At the church, Nathan began noticing unfamiliar cars parked near the rectory. Sometimes a white SUV, other times a dark sedan, idling just long enough to be noticed but not caught. Jason and Emily had been moved to a temporary safe house outside the city. A decision made after a brick was thrown through the rectory window one night with a note taped to it. Dead men don't talk. Don't make us finish the job. Griggs, furious, doubled police presence around Nathan's parish, but the threat lingered like smoke after a fire. And Vanessa's shadow was everywhere. Nathan received an invitation in the mail the next day. Heavy cream cardstock, gold trim, embossed letters. You are cordially invited to a private reception hosted by Vanessa Langford at the Bellhurst Country Club RSVP required. Discretion expected. He held it like a lit fuse. At first, he thought it was a trap. Then he realized it was bait. That evening, Nathan sat across from Griggs in the rectory kitchen. The lights were dimmed. Coffee steamed between them. "She wants to meet you on her turf," Griggs said, studying the card. "She's feeling cornered. She wants to scare me or recruit me. Either way, she's showing her cards." Griggs raised a brow. "You're going?" "Yes." She leaned back. "You used to be a cop. Not anymore. You're a priest. If something happens..." "I'm not walking into this blind," Nathan said. "But I need to see her up close. You can't fight shadows from behind a pulpit." Griggs sighed. "You get anything that sounds like an admission, you tell me. We're close to getting her on conspiracy charges." Vanessa spotted Nathan the moment he entered. She looked flawless. Glossy blonde hair, black satin dress, and a smile so polished it could cut glass. "Nathan Ross," she purred. "I didn't think you'd come. I admire a man who faces fire." "I've walked through worse," he replied. She handed him a glass of wine and gestured toward the terrace. "Let's talk in private." Outside, the city lights blinked in the distance, framed by manicured hedges and stone lions. "You're playing a dangerous game," Nathan said quietly. She sipped her wine, unbothered. "So are you. You could have stayed quiet. Let the past stay buried. The truth doesn't bury easily." Vanessa turned to him, her eyes sharper now. "You think Jason's innocent? He wanted out of the Foundation, out of his responsibilities. I gave him what he asked for, a way out, and now he's playing martyr." "He was imprisoned," Nathan said coldly. "Drugged, nearly killed." "Oh, please. He's alive, isn't he?" Her smile faded. "Don't moralize me, Father. You walked away from justice once. You found a collar to hide behind. You're not fooling anyone." Nathan's jaw clenched. She knew how to strike the nerve. "I didn't walk away," he said evenly. "I laid down the badge to carry something heavier." Vanessa leaned in close. "Then carry this. Walk away now, and the people you care about stay safe. Keep pushing. Emily ends up in a river. Jason gets buried for real this time. And your sweet little parish catches fire in the night." Nathan's hand curled tightly around the glass. He stayed silent for a beat. Then, in a voice calm and even, "You just threatened me." She blinked, too late to pull it back. Nathan stepped back, pulling a pen-sized recorder from his jacket pocket. "You should have watched." Security appeared almost immediately. "Is there a problem, Miss Langford?" "Yes," she snapped. "Escort this man out." Nathan went willingly. As he passed her, he said only one thing. "You just buried yourself." Back at the station, Nathan handed the recording to Griggs. She listened to it twice, then smiled. She's toast. The first hint of smoke came during the Sunday morning service. Nathan stood at the altar, reading aloud from the Gospel of Matthew, when the youngest altar boy tugged his robe and pointed toward the back. Whispers rippled through the pews as a faint grey haze drifted beneath the arched doors. Nathan stopped mid-verse. "Everyone please remain calm," he said, voice steady despite the rising panic inside him. "Ushers, open the side exits. Everyone move quietly and quickly." By the time the congregation spilled onto the front lawn, black smoke was rolling from the sacristy. Someone had started a fire. Fire trucks arrived minutes later, but the damage was done. The vestry was scorched, the choir room charred. Years of parish records, priceless hymnals, and a century-old organ were destroyed. Nathan watched the flames crackle through stained glass, heart pounding. Griggs showed up just as the last flare was smothered. "This wasn't an accident," she said. "Gasoline traces in the hallway, multiple ignition points." Nathan nodded. "Vanessa sent a message, which means she's rattled." Griggs looked grim. "She'll get more dangerous now." The fire made the local news. Headlines read, "Arson at historic church, community rattled." The community rallied around Nathan, offering support, donations, prayers. But Nathan saw the deeper effect. Fear. Attendance dropped. Elderly parishioners stopped coming. The church secretary, Martha, took a leave of absence. Vanessa's message had landed. "I can touch anything, even God's house." Nathan couldn't sleep. He sat in his charred office at midnight, the smoke still lingering in the air, flipping through the church's old photo album. One of the few things salvaged. He paused on a picture of the church groundbreaking decades ago. His father stood in the back row. So did Nathan. Silence. "I keep thinking about how close I came to dying," Jason said. "But now I wonder if staying alive was worse. I'm not sure who I am anymore." Nathan said softly, "You're someone who survived. That counts for something." "I want to come back," Jason said. Nathan blinked. "What?" "I want to testify, not anonymously, in court, against her." Nathan's throat tightened. "You're sure?" "I'm tired of hiding," Jason whispered. "She took my life once. I won't let her take what's left." Griggs was stunned when Nathan relayed the news. "We'll need protection," she said. "Once we unseal Jason's identity, Vanessa will escalate. She might try to flee or kill again." "I'll keep him here," Nathan said, "at the church." Griggs blinked. "You want to bring him back here? The same place that just got torched?" Nathan nodded. "That's why she won't expect it." She stared at him, then slowly smiled. "You've got more cop left in you than you admit." Jason arrived under police escort, thinner, paler, but no longer shaking. He stepped into the ruined sanctuary with awe. "Still smells like incense," he whispered. "We'll rebuild," Nathan said. This church is more than walls. Jason looked around. I remember coming here with my mother before she died. They stood there in silence, ash floating through sunlight like feathers. Later that night, someone tried to break in. The window over the rectory kitchen shattered around 2 a.m. Nathan was ready. He met the intruder with a baseball bat, an old habit from his cop days. The man bolted, but not before Nathan got a look at his tattoo. A serpent wrapped around a gold chalice. He told Griggs the next morning. Vanessa's hired muscle, she said. That's a tattoo linked to a gang out of Tallahassee. She's going rogue now. No more clean hands. Nathan exhaled. Then neither can we. Griggs nodded. We file charges this week. Conspiracy, attempted murder, fraud, arson. And once Jason takes the stand, it's over. But Vanessa had one move left, and it would come from inside. Rain fell steadily as Sunday services resumed in the still smoke-scarred sanctuary. The ceiling bore black streaks. The pews had been scrubbed, though the scent of ash lingered. Still, more parishioners returned than Nathan expected. Some came out of loyalty. Others came out of fear, afraid not of Vanessa, but of letting evil go unanswered. Jason sat in the front row under discreet police watch, hood up, head low. Nathan stood behind the pulpit, Bible open, though he wasn't reading. I want to speak today, he said, not from scripture, but from my life. A hush fell over the congregation. I haven't always been a priest. I was once a cop. I wore a badge, carried a gun. I believed in justice, but I also believed I could control outcomes, that I could protect everyone I loved if I just worked hard enough. But when I failed, I ran. Not from the law, but from myself. I thought this collar could shield me, that if I became a new man, the old one would disappear. He paused, eyes searching the crowd. But sin doesn't vanish when you put on robes. It just waits in silence. And now it's returned, not just for me, but for us all. People were leaning forward, breath held. There is a woman who walks among us freely. She lies, manipulates, and kills. And now she threatens the place we gather to mourn and heal. But the truth is coming, and she cannot hide forever. Nathan closed his Bible. Justice, like faith, is not passive. We don't wait for it. We carry it forward, together. Later that afternoon, a woman came to the rectory door. Dripping wet, early 50s, short grey bob, nervous hands. Can I help you? Nathan asked. She looked up, trembling. Your father, Nathan Hale? Yes. My name's Margaret Klein. I used to work for Vanessa Locke, years ago. He stepped aside to let her in, heart starting to race. They sat at the kitchen table. Margaret sipped tea with both hands. I was her personal assistant. Scheduling, messages, travel. I knew things, not everything, but enough to scare me. I left after her ex-boyfriend disappeared. She said he ran off, but I saw the police report. Blood under the stairs. Nathan leaned forward. Why come now? Margaret set down her cup. Because I saw the fire on the news, and I recognized the boy in the photo. Jason. You know him? He was her nephew, but she never loved him. Not really, just used him. Margaret's hands shook. I think she killed her sister, Jason's mother. Nathan blinked. The death certificate said aneurysm. I know, but I also saw the life insurance papers. Vanessa signed as a witness, and the handwriting didn't match. Nathan swallowed hard. Would you testify to that? Margaret hesitated, then nodded. I've carried this for too long. I'm tired of being afraid. Greek sat across from Margaret, hours later, taking notes. When she finished, she turned to Nathan. This is it, she said. We have motive, pattern, 2 living witnesses, and corroborating fraud. Then let's bring her in, Nathan said. Greeks nodded. We'll get the warrant signed tomorrow. She'll be in custody before sunrise. But that night, Nathan couldn't sleep. Not because of fear, because of certainty. He knew something was coming. At 3:14 a.m., Jason screamed. Nathan ran to his guest room, door wide open. Jason was gone. The sheets were ripped, the window forced open from the outside, and left behind on the bed, smeared in red lipstick, was a folded piece of paper. In Vanessa's handwriting, she was just the beginning. The sky was still dark when the squad cars surrounded the Cloth estate. Griggs led the operation herself. Nathan stood at the perimeter, dressed not in priestly robes, but in his old leather jacket from his days as a detective. The past had returned, and so had his resolve. Inside the manor, silence ruled. The officers breached. They found no resistance, just the hollow echo of high heels abandoned in the foyer. Upstairs, Jason's backpack sat open on a vanity. His phone lay smashed beside it, but neither Jason nor Vanessa were there. Griggs called in a bolo, statewide. She knew, she muttered. She always knows. Nathan felt it too. This wasn't over. Hours later, back at the church, Nathan found something strange near the altar. A small, bloodied cross pinned to the carpet with a knife. Taped beneath it was a photograph. Jason tied to a chair in what looked like a mausoleum. Griggs studied the image. That's Greenwood Cemetery, the old chapel building, abandoned since the flood 10 years ago. Nathan didn't wait for a tactical team. He ran. The Greenwood Chapel sat in a grove of dead oaks. Fog clung to the ground like a burial shroud. Nathan approached the doors cautiously. Inside, candlelight flickered. Jason sat gagged and bound at the far end beneath a cracked, stained glass Jesus. And beside him, Vanessa Locke. She wore black, her lipstick fresh, her smile soulless. I knew you'd come, Father, she said sweetly. Nathan stepped forward, hands up. This ends tonight. She raised a revolver. "I used to believe in God," she whispered. Nathan moved slowly. "You think this is justice?" she asked. "I love Jason in my way. He was useful. But people get too close. They see behind the curtain." "You murdered your sister," Nathan said. "Your own blood." Vanessa laughed. "And you murdered your family every day. You didn't stop the man who killed them. We both wear guilt, priest." Nathan's voice shook. "I don't hide behind it." She aimed the gun at Jason. In a flash, Nathan lunged. The gun went off once, echoing through the chapel like thunder. Nathan hit the ground hard, but the bullet had missed. Griggs burst in moments later, weapon raised. Vanessa spun to shoot again, but Griggs didn't hesitate. One clean shot to the shoulder. Vanessa dropped, screaming, cursing, still alive. Jason was freed, shaking, sobbing, but safe. Vanessa was cuffed, read her rights, and carried out under heavy guard. Outside, the dawn had finally broken. Weeks later, the town returned to peace. The church was restored. Jason stayed in Nathan's care with full custody granted. Griggs stopped by each Sunday, sometimes staying for coffee, sometimes more. Nathan resumed sermons, but something had changed. His voice no longer carried just scripture. It carried truth, wounds, experience, and grace. On the first day of spring, Jason stood before the congregation and read a verse Nathan had chosen. "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." For the first time in years, Nathan believed it. If you like the story, I would be very happy to have your support. Click the thumbs up. And to not miss new stories, subscribe and click on the bell. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, and all the best.